Welcome to Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. I am Juliette Hahn. I'm here with my co-host, Brent Sopel, and we are here to change the narrative. We want to educate, but we also want you guys to understand what it is like to be dyslexic and how things can change. So join us every week for Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. I've recently just started talking about this and really diving into it. I think we are sometimes born with like an innate confidence, certain people. And I was a kid that literally I was on top of the refrigerator before I could walk. Like my mom came down one time and she was like, oh my God, I just had this confidence that I could do things. Someone might say that's just dumb, right? Like I jumped into the ocean before I could swim. Like my parents were like, oh my God, she's just like, and this was when I was like a little kid. So they, impulse, right? It could be an impulse thing, but I like to look at it as an innate confidence. I believed in myself from an early age. And then that takes me into my story of then when school made me shrink a little bit. But then I had those things where I was athletic and I could be the top of that. And so I was the kid that kind of was like, F you teachers, I'm going to go, which again, I don't know where that came from, right? Is that just how I was born? Was it an experience where you had the opposite? You shrunk and then shrunk and shrunk until even not on the ice though.
Did anybody else have that?
Am I correct?
Did anybody have that same kind of confidence in your family? Your mom or dad or?
So I think my dad, because I've talked to my dad just recently and I was like, I really want to dive in. I mean, my dad's brother went to Harvard and Yale. They were really, really bright people. And he was severe dyslexic, dysgraphic, ADHD, probably did, I don't know about dyscalculia, and it wasn't done then.
Yeah.
But he was his mom's favorite because he had a personality and he was cute. And so my dad, I was saying to him, like, do you ever remember feeling like crap about yourself? And he's like, no, because even though I was really bad in school and people would tell me I was dumb, my mom was always building me up like, oh, but you're the personality. Cause my dad had, we kind of a similar personality. So I do think there's something there, right? There was definitely something that I related with my dad, but I also think we were just born that way because my older sister who had the same learning disabilities and the same profile, she, had a really, really, really tough time. And wasn't until she was older that she really was like, okay, I am worthy. And she really went through some really big struggles. And my mom said it was so different raising us because my sister would be like, I'm so dumb. And I would come home and be like, that dumb teacher. And my mom was like, oh.
Isn't it amazing how like the kids can come out of the same place, separated by, could be seconds, and they're not even remotely the closest same as the people. It's astounding.
It's fascinating.
It
really, really is.
And it's, my dad's, confident, he's smart. His writing, I should say, his printing is perfect. I'm like, been selling farm equipment his whole life, and he's in Tasmania. I didn't even know that was a country. So, until recently. But my sister and I both are on the non-confident side. And, I guess I relate. Kobe Bryant is probably the biggest one that I relate to when it comes to, because he always talks about working harder than everybody else and always doing it, always playing on the basketball court, always working out, and guys are out doing partying, or I'm always in the gym. It's because he didn't get along and didn't relate with anybody. And I was a lot of that, that same way. I had a group of friends, but it was always different. There was never any relatability. So the self-confidence wasn't there because I'm like, I always thought I was dumb, but I just didn't get along with it. It wasn't get along. I didn't relate to anybody.
You just felt different, right? Do you remember when when you innately realized?
Again, it's not until the last almost 7 years since I got sober that a lot of this stuff is making sense to me, who I am. And I remember grade 3 getting pissed off a kid. I picked up a desk and threw it across the room at him. So that's how far back my pain goes, and my anger goes at school. I think he called me dumb. I can't, but I remember grade 4 Jello. My mom used to make Jello. I'd throw it on the ceiling and stick it up there, pants a kid in class, just being the smart ass, being the asshole. So, that's how far back I remember the pain. I don't know if the relatability, again, it's just recently in the last number of years, it's not the relatability, it's the understanding first. I'm really starting to understand myself and the world in such a different lens than I did for the first, 40 years. Did I say my age?
Yes, because we just get better with age. I mean, that is one thing. And we do. We get better with age. I mean, maybe things don't hang the same, or stay the same, but we get better with age. I feel like my brain, well, you know what? There's a part, and it's interesting that you talked about that, because when I was growing up, so I grew up in a town, very competitive town. It was right outside of Philadelphia. It was a town in New Jersey, mostly very wealthy. And all my friends were good in school. And I remember realizing when I wasn't, and it was like 3rd, 4th grade, when the entire class went to gifted and talented, and me and the troublemaker went to special reading. And I'm not going to say the person's name, that the doctor, but she was like, you two come with us. And I remember all my friends came running over, and they were like, where are you going? And I'm like, I don't know. Where are you guys going? And we kind of skipped off, because again, I was kind of this, kind of go lucky kid. But, I was very attention deficit. I always was, laughing and being silly and, talking to my friends and distracting people. But I wasn't, I had, always came up with like a good heart. It was like, okay, Juliet, you just have to sit in the front and whatever. And I remember she was a really slow talker. And she had a huge butt and huge boobs that were like really saggy. And I was like fascinated with her walking down the hall. And I remember saying to the kid who was the troublemaker, he was the troublemaker in class. And so I remember he used to flip his eyelids, and he had really, really dark skin. And he had like the orangest eyes, and I would die laughing. And she would yell at us and be like, you guys got to focus. And we had to sit and read The Blue Dolphin. That's what we had to do. Everyone went to gifted and talented, and they said it like, you guys are all going to gifted and talented. You guys are going to special reading. And the thing that's crazy is, and I'm almost positive they said it, but like the teacher was a good friend of our family. I still love her. And she had every single one of our kids, and she was really good friends with my mom. And I remember I went home and saying to my mom, why can't I go with everyone? Because when I came back to class, everyone, my friends come running over, and they're like, oh my God, we are going to get to leave school. We're going on these competitions. We're going to make this like night and honor these puzzles. We get to be so creative. And I was like, well, I want to do that. They're like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, I have to read The Blue Dolphin. They're like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. So I went home and I said to my mom, and my mom said to me, oh, you know what? We had to be away for a couple of the weeks when they were doing the competition. It's a waste of time. So I told them that you couldn't do it. And I skipped off. Where my sister would have beaten herself up, except now I know I told myself that day I wasn't creative.
Well, there's a couple points to that. Interesting that your mom was able to spin that way instead of, I don't know why either. So her intuition,
she always protected.
Yeah, straight protection. And it was positive protection, not negative protection. And then the other one is, and then, this is where we can talk about lots, schools and teachers and friends. Oh, you're friends with that teacher. Okay, friends outside of school. Remember, school is a business. Mm-hmm. So it would be interesting to see if your mom, did she ever call her and say, hey, why? Or was this something that had a conversation with your mom before? So that's where that positive defense was able to come into play.
Yeah, I have no idea. And the other thing is, it might have not even been her that said it. It might have been the person that was separating it might have been that doctor that came in to take me to special reading. She might have been the one that was like, you guys are going to come to reading and you guys are going to go to give. And again, it might be something that really actually didn't happen. They just split the classes. Like, you're going to come here. But in my head now, when I remember, it was like, oh my gosh. And I do remember though, like, that is like a very first memory. And I remember hating the blue dolphin. And still, like, when my kids, I would be like, freaking blue dolphin. And they're like, oh, you're so negative against the blue dolphin.
So, so were you in a school that was, because I was in a school from kindergarten to grade 8, we're all in one school.
No. So there was 4 elementary schools. And
small.
so
you weren't in a small town. What are you talking about?
Oh, well, it's right. It's right. I forgot who I was talking to.
Your definition of small and mine are way different.
Actually, that's actually hilarious because, right. No, it is probably more considered a medium town. However, I'm living in a small town now.
Town to you?
So and again, I'm terrible with, so I can't say, but I think I graduated with like 250 kids, which is not like in high school.
Yeah, I was somewhere around there, somewhere in there, and but I never, it'd be interesting. I don't know if this is a Canadian thing or an American thing. Maybe now you're saying it, is I never knew such thing as a middle school.
Right, and we had a middle school.
Yeah, so maybe that's an American thing. I don't know. My kids. Jake was ill when he was grade 2 or 3. Then we moved. So most of my kids were in the U.S. for most of that time. So that's interesting. I never thought about that. Maybe it's an American thing. I don't know.
It could be. Yeah. And it's interesting because it was kindergarten to 4th grade. Middle school was 5th to 8th grade. So like little 5th graders were in with 8th graders. And then high school was 9th to 12th. But at some point they changed that. So then there was like an upper middle, like once, we moved out and we weren't there anymore, there was an upper middle school and stuff like that because they realized like 5th graders with 8th graders, it's just,
How about kindergarten?
When you're 5th grade, you're so little.
They still St. Anne's School. That's where I went to elementary. They still got kindergarten with 8th graders, That's, especially nowadays, cell phone, social media. That's probably really awesome.
Right. Oh my God, that's hard. But now, so was your town though, was it like a regional school? So like my town, everyone from the town went to school. Like no other towns came to that school. So it was like everything was in. I know like here, my kids, we live in a town next to the high school and middle school that they go to, but the elementary school was the town, this is a small town that we're living now.
So we're, Saskatoon, where I grew up, it's about 250,000 people, so, again, I call that small now, living in, in Chicago, living in, New York now, where I've lived, it's tiny. But we, where you live. So there was 2 high schools that I could have went to, again, small, same kind of thing. You had to live in that. Yeah. The biggest thing, you had to live in that region, to go to that school.
Right. So that school. Yeah. And so like mine, it was called Morristown High. It was Morristown. It was right outside of Philly. MOO. Everyone's always like, oh, Morris. And I'm like, no, it's not north. We're south. So and Phillies, it was 15 minutes.
What happened to you? You were nice. Everybody else is assholes in Philly. Where'd you come from? Did you get dropped in your head at a young age? What happened?
No, I got dropped. Grew up in Jersey, which I know it's so funny because now I live in Long Island, and you're like, oh my God. No, anywhere I've ever lived, people.
Suffolk?
No, Suffolk. Suffolk County, which is like, we think this is a better part of Long Island. So excuse my other Long Island people that I know from the other side. We won't even get into that. But no, it is. It's funny though, because our town was like a very sweet, nice town, and people like, I know Philly fans. I mean, like Philly is tough.
Now I know when you won the Stanley Housewives with the white picket fence and everything is great.
I have to say, but this is what's so interesting as I get into my story is that it was very like that. I mean, kids were, we rode bikes to school, everything, you were outside. Yeah. I mean, it was like, the town, we could walk to town. It was a very very preppy. You know, people wore pink and green. I mean, it was like a very like happy place. Now, my parents did get divorced when I was 12. It was the first, like none of our friends that happened to. So everyone was like, oh my gosh, if your parents getting a divorce. I had an adopted sister, which was different. One of my older sisters, not my adopted sister, but we didn't do well in school. My older sister actually moved to schools because she couldn't, like Morristown. She was like, she didn't love it. She was like, not like she didn't do athletics. It was very athletic. So I fit in, and my younger sibling, like we really just fit in, except, and this is where I think when we dive into this, I was in the lower level classes. So like the kids that I was friends with a number of different people because I was friends with all different groups. Like I just recently, a couple years ago, someone reached out to me like on Facebook, and they're like, I just have to say, you were always so nice. You were one of them that were always nice to everyone. But it was because I was I'm just a nice person, period. But like I knew when people struggled. I was like, kind of like, I just was a happy kid. Do you know what I mean? But I knew when people struggled and I was in those classes, it was like, we're just all people, right? We're just trying to get through this shit because it sucks. I mean, I had a teacher call me retarded in front of the whole class because I said pubic instead of public.
Oh, retarded. What does he say in Hangover? Retarded. What's that line?
I totally know the line, and I can't think of it right now.
Great movie, but it's funny. Funny you say those things is, if I talk to like any of my teammates, like I tell people all the time, I played pro hockey for 18 years and I didn't leave with one friend. People are like, what are you talking about? Like, how is that possible? But everybody you can talk to, oh yeah. Soaps, that's my nickname. No, I don't even think anybody, we don't even know first names. I can't even tell you, probably 18 years pro, I probably cannot tell you a quarter of the first names of my teammates. And I've had thousands of them. It was all nicknames.
Right.
Warren Z, Soaps, like just, you put a Z and you put a Y in the back of it and everybody's nicknames and, like just, Sharpie, like, yeah, it's very creative. Hockey players, very creative, not. But they always said, he was weird, but it was always nice. In hockey, when I was younger, I was mean, bully. I was a bully that, because that, what you just said, getting laughed at, in school, because I'm reading the wrong words. And, so yeah, but I remember in high school, Marion Graham, I don't know if they created the class for me or it was, I think they called them electives. I get to work with, with the handicapped kids, I can't remember if it was an hour or 2 hours, every day. I absolutely loved it. It's my favorite class, so It goes back to that related, you talk about pain and understanding, I loved it. So I don't remember if they created for me or that was one of the electives, but I loved it.
Right.
I felt at home.
Well, because right. But you also didn't feel, I remember so that was like my 9th grade, I think. And this is what's interesting. You're going to laugh at this. Like now, my mom didn't curse. She didn't drink.
Did you just talk Canadian? 9th grade?
9th grade.
We're changing you.
Freshman. Oh yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but that's like she literally, and I'm not going to say her name, but when she had a birthmark on the whole side of her face. Yep. So she was like a homely woman. Okay. And I was sitting there and I always would and I know you can totally relate to this. I've heard you talk about this, but I had to read, if I had to read out loud, I literally would sweat. It was torture. And I would have to glance at it before and I'd be like, oh my God, if there's a word that I don't know. And then you stumble because something that people don't realize, and they've done so many studies, when you're dyslexic, ADHD, whatever, when that pressure starts, your brain shuts off and everyone else's lights up. But when you are under that pressure, that's why test. I would know the material, but I would fail the test because I would literally my brain would just shut off. Yeah. Be like, how do I not know anything? So I had to read, out loud, and she called on me first when she knew that I would stumble. And I said pubic instead of public. Now, the thing that's funny is up until like literally 3 weeks ago when I was telling the story, I was like, they're spelled the same. And one of my girlfriends was like, they're not spelled the same. And I was like, oh, I thought they were spelled the same. That's why I was like,
in my head going, that's the same thing, spelled the same thing. Like
it's the same word. Right. Totally.
Go ahead.
And she literally, so I said pubic. Now the class laughed because they thought I was probably being silly too.
Yeah.
And she goes, what are you, retarded? And what I did instinctively, this is why it's how people are wired. I jumped up and said, what are you, a bitch? And I ran out of the class, hysterical crying, down to the principal's office, who I knew because my mom was in school, and I couldn't breathe. I literally couldn't breathe. And he was like, what? And I was like, I called and I said her name and a bitch. And he's like, you did what? And I was like, she called me retarded. And he's like, oh my God. And he's like, wait, what just happened? He's like, let me call your mom. He's like, I don't understand. And I explained. And at this point, I wasn't like, they knew I struggled, but I wasn't like, I didn't get tested in the school. It was just like, okay, she's just not really good in school. She's a good athlete. And that's what I would have teachers time and time again say to me. If you just focused like you did on the sports field, you would be fine in school. If you didn't fool around, if you didn't, and because I was a social butterfly. So I did. Right. So I did talk, but I remember my mom coming in. And now when I say my mom literally never curses, I was like, I'm in so much trouble, right? I'm going to get in so much trouble. I cursed in an adult, which like, it was just not acceptable. But literally as we left, she looked at me and said, I'm really proud of you for standing up for yourself. I don't like that you cursed, but I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. No one should ever speak to you that way. And I'm moving you out of that class, and not one. And my mom literally was like, went to the principal. If anyone of my other kids gets this teacher, I will come in here. And they were like, we know, Barbara. We know, because my mom was the biggest advocate. Now, for my older sister, that would have killed her. Did that kill me? Did that hurt? Oh, it hurt. Like, I remember my friends who were in my class, they're like, what happened? I can't believe you called her a bitch. And I was like, guys, I didn't do it on purpose. Like, I shouldn't have called her a bitch. But then of course it was like, oh, that was the talk. I can't believe that, Juliet Williams, my maiden name was Williams, called Mrs. blah, blah, blah. But I also remember saying to my mom, I feel badly for her because she's probably been picked on her whole life because she's really homely. And I felt bad because I was like, she's taking it out on me because I'm really pretty. So I had this innate confidence. But those kind of things kill you, I did. My mom was like, oh, okay. I
remember, I said this the other day. I spoke at high school. The teachers, no, there's never a bad question. Always raise your hand. I'm like, yeah, till you're dyslexic. You're like, what? Totally. I'm like, yeah. And so anytime, I'm in, I think we're in the library or whatever. There's a couple hundred people. I'm like, so as a teacher, when you're standing in front of class and you're like, all right, turn around the board, you write something. Can you answer this? And I grab this chair and I put it behind me. I'm like, the kids that are hiding and don't want to be called upon?
Yeah.
Everybody's laughing. I'm like, there's a reason why.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, that's a dyslexic. That's ADHD. Very few kids that I've come across upon through my 77 lives that I've lived so far. Nobody wants to not succeed at anything. Whatever that is. Like Mrs. Smith asked, Brent, what's 2 + 2? You want to answer that so fucking badly the right way. Nobody purposely wants to get it wrong.
Right.
There's a reason, so there's no kid that purposely wants to get laughed at or they want to do it, but there's a reason why they can't get it.
And, you and I talked about this because that was one of the things that really made me stop and listen to you more. Is I have been saying this for years. There's no such thing as a class clown or a kid that is a bully. There's something underlining it. Now, it could be a family situation, but most of the time it's because they are struggling in some sense. And if we can identify that early and deal with it, that's why the public school system is so broken, and it makes me so angry because it's like we're going to push kids through. We're just going to push them through because we don't feel like dealing. And then that's when things later in life come out and there's the trouble, the things that are happening, now.
I spoke the other day when we actually at this, when I was talking at this high school, about these, these same things. And, I created that Y program, and it started off with, for coaches, I need to know if your kid has mental health or learning disorders so I can educate the coach in whatever sport, if that's Truman or Montgomery, to teach them the right way. Because if you don't have it, you don't understand it. But as I started, digging in a little bit more, nobody can ask the why because they can't get past the pain to ask the why. Does that make sense?
100%. And it hit me like that. It's so true.
I'm coaching, I'm coaching, and the one kid, I might, which is 5, 6, 7, and 8. He's 7, and he's been going out practicing with 9, 10-year-olds. Not with my permission. And listen, I'm not that, but he couldn't do this one thing. I said, I'm not gonna say to kids, I'm like, you can't go and practice with the squirts, it's called, until you can do this. Well, he went to his parents, said I swore at him, and do this, and the parents turn into, Brent, you're all about mental health. Actually, you're right, I am. And I'm trying to protect him for the mental health later, because the next level when he can't do this is when he's going to get exposed. But they took the initial pain that what thought was pain for him, they couldn't see past or can't see past to ask the why. Mm-hmm. And, the school system, the teachers, you're right. It may be home. It may be ADHD. It could be any kind of learning disorder, maybe home, but nobody, I think that's what society cares enough to ask why. Julia, you okay?
Right.
That's not hard.
And it really, no, it's not. And, and it's not hard checking on your neighbor, checking on someone, just being like, hey, I'm here. I care. I really do. And it's so much deeper and so much, but it's also because there's people, especially in this world where, I will say to my kids all the time, just stop and look around. Be aware of what's around. Don't be the person that is just going straight and doesn't look left and right and behind, because you're going to miss so many different things. You're going to miss so many different people. And when they were little, that's what I would say to them all the time. Be aware, look around. Do you see an old lady that dropped something? Go pick it up. Don't be the person that just walks. Now, I lived in New York City for many years, and in New York City, people will literally run over you. Anytime I even got in a cab, people will be like, "Oh, you're not from around here, are you?" And I'm like, "No, I lived here for years." But that's the thing. People don't want to ask because people have pain that they don't want to deal with.
That's,
as you said.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing when you said to your kids, don't miss, look around. The people that don't look around are in the worst pain. And then, I say this and people get mad at me, like the suicide you talked about, checking in, I'll go on social media and go my rants sometimes. And people, I talk about, people, the copy and paste the suicide hotline number. I'm like, fuck you. No, that's not, when we're there, that's not where I'm going to call it. No. That's not how it works. Do you check in on somebody? Don't call them. Don't just, and I say, people talk about, and I talk about suicide. I'm like, couldn't be happier for that person. They're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm like, you have no idea what it is like to be that dark, and their pain is gone. And you don't tell me you're sad. Yeah, you're not sad. You didn't check on that person. You didn't care enough to make a call. So don't give me that. This is this is a different perspective than most people are going to give you. Oh, it's sad that so-and-so is gone. You know, I put myself in that position because I've been there. I'm like, that pain is gone. You know, so as you tell your kid, you know, be aware, look around, you know, it's because the darkest, the coldest, the most pain people can't. And they're just trying to make it one step at a time. And you're able to, your kids are in a good place because of you guys as parents and you as a mother able to make them, you know, that's a positive outlook, be okay. You know, and that shines a light, you know, not a flashlight straight ahead. You and your kids shine this way and impact people on a greater level than most people do. We got to ride our bikes to school, to the park, be home at dinner, have no idea, playing in the mud and the dirt, and you know, kissing in the bushes, and you know, doing this. Now this.
Oh, it's
and I tell this to parents that I'm trying to coach. I'm like I start my practices off with the name game. Hi, my name is Brent. Hi, my name is Juliet. Hi, my name is Lee. Hi, my name is Sarah. You know, they're like, why? First off, kids nowadays don't know how to communicate, so let's try and communicate.
Totally.
You know, like hockey, they tap their stick on the ice is the way they want. I'm like, are you ordering a Big Mac? You want a fillet of fish? You know, Whopper and cheese? You want to go to bed? What do you need? What is that? He's like, pass the puck. I'm like, you know what? That doesn't say pass the puck. You want it? Brent, I'm open. Coach, I'm open. I'm like, and because they don't get to grow up the way we do.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
And did. And it was amazing. You know, it's created who we are, but you know, the cell phones and the protectedness and the scaredness and the information. Great. You can Google a number. Great. Still Google how to spell something. It still doesn't fucking look right to me anyway. So it don't matter if I Google it or not. It's still pubic and public, spelled the same way. Or there's only one there. And anybody wants to correct me on social media, go fuck yourself.
Oh,
you know, it all means the same. There and there.
Funny. Well, that, you know, I mean, I love that you just said that, because that's so true. And that is one of the things about, and again, we laughed about this, but there's so many times where I have like such a big idea and I go to like put it in my notes or do something, and the freaking word can't even come up because I can't even I'm saying it, but I'm like, I am saying it right. But apparently I'm saying a little off, and it can't even spell check. Can't even pick it up.
When I say fuck, I mean fuck. I don't mean duck. I mean fuck.
I feel like though, when I'm editing, I think something fuck always comes up, and I'm like, all right, it picks up my fuck. It is so crazy and insane, right? The way kids are being raised now and what's happening with them. And it does hurt my heart a little bit, but it is the way it is. And so we need to adjust and we say it to our kids all the time. I'm like, you better never break up with someone over a frickin' text. Like, you look them in the face and you talk to them. I know that's how you guys communicate. And I have to say, my oldest is like, Mom, I would never do that. And I'm like, I'm proud of you, but he's dyslexic and he's got great communication skills, right? I say to my other two, I don't care.
I remember calling a girl's house. Please don't her dad don't. Please dad don't answer the phone. Please dad don't answer the phone. Fuck, dad answered the phone. Click.
Totally. Remember, we had to go through. Oh my gosh, we had the long cord.
Oh
and the ding.
But I found a lot. You know, I look when I'm obviously there's no emotion behind texting or emailing. Those words don't have emotion, and that's hard, because everything I live you're gonna like me or not. Like, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. That's okay. I'm a tea kettle, but you're gonna know. And I don't know how many times relationships or whatever things were misconstrued, through a text, because I don't know how many times if you do this, if I can't spell a word, I'll spend the next 5, 7, 10 minutes trying to say what I'm trying to say without using that word, because I don't know how to spell that word.
I know. It's so maddening.
And then it comes off wrong, and then relationships I actually should call it right away. And no, then they won't pick up, only text. I'm like, fuck off. Like, you know, so it's a different world nowadays. It really is. And it's, you know, it's sad.
And here's the thing, I'm going to like flip this because it's really interesting. The fact that there's so many different ways now that with dyslexia, with the technology that should be able to help. But like I go back and I've kind of just put all of these things together. And I think we talked about this is the reason why I love doing video and talking is because I can read someone. Because of all my struggles when I was a kid, I know how to read people. I can tell the way they're talking. I can tell when things slow down, when they're uncomfortable about talking. I can tell when they speed up. I can tell the little bits of their way they talk, and I can read them by seeing their body language. So when I'm talking to someone, whether it's a new client or whatever, it's really difficult for me. I text. It doesn't like, I can't just text. I have to voice text. And I have to tell you how many people in my world hate my voice text. And then how many people in my world appreciate a voice text. And I get it, right? Like my kids will be like, Ma, I hear you talk all the time. I can't. And I'm like, but I have so much to say in this. Like, hey, I'm going here. I need to do this. It's too much for me to I can't text it because it doesn't come across.
What do they say? Women say 30,000 words a day and guys say 10.
Right. I'm probably saying more than 30.
Your voice text is a million better than a novel. And well, holy shit, I ain't reading that, you know. And you go back to my earlier story, the one kid, the mom sent me, the dad called my boss the night before, and then the woman sent an email, and I responded, gratefully, I'm not reading your email. I sent it right away. I guess she didn't like that. She took that the wrong way, but I'm not, I can't, but it was funny. I don't need to look at people. I tell people like I can almost read minds by the questions I ask and how they say it, what they, how, so I pick, I don't need to see them. I ask certain questions in a certain manner to see what happens. And
I love that.
My one buddy, he's a fireman. When I get him, or he understands what I'm saying, all I get is a "fuck you."
I love that. No, but that's so funny because that's how when you are dyslexic in certain ways, like our weaknesses became. I know for me, it became some of my really big strengths, and so your friend gets it because he's like. I'm not gonna get into this and then fuck you because you're right. But think about, this is what I think about so interesting. And this is what actually I think, in the corporate world makes me really angry is they are missing so many people because their entrance exams or everything is over email. I mean, I have friends that, are in the business world. My husband's in the business world. And when he's like, yeah, I have to email back and forth. I wouldn't be able to be in their company because I wouldn't be able to, I could not do that. And they would miss someone that has a creative mind that actually probably can make the company better because of my personality and the way I can get people together and work through and my intuitiveness and all these different things. But it baffles my mind that it's got to that level where there's things for dyslexics that help us. But then in there, I remember he was going for a company and it was really one of these big companies and he had to go through 5 different tests. And I got so pissed and he was like, why are you so pissed? You're not taking the test. I go, because myself and Montgomery, he's like, you're not doing it. And I was like, but I wouldn't have gotten past the first thing. And I probably could have gotten this job, but I couldn't get past the first thing. And how many people is this company missing? Fuck that company. And it was actually it was a big company. And I typically had liked them and liked what they did. And from that day on, I was like, fuck them. I was like that. They're missing so many people and they're just having one-sided people.
It's funny. It's funny you say that because, I was in the solar industry, had my own company and, we end up, had some third-party installers, in certain states, and the company Titan. I'm not, they were in like 17 states, so I could operate. They would only operate through a platform, tag a person, So there I am, going back and forth. I'm texting with one guy. Tried for about a month and a half to get him on a phone call. I'm like, this isn't making sense. Can you help me? Can you call me? I need you to walk me through it, because you can email me back and forth. You can text, they cost me thousands of dollars, thousands and thousands. They're scumbags. And if I ever see, these guys, like, then he's like, I don't have time to call you, but you got time to text me. I'm like, what part of it? I'm not understanding, and to your point, if they didn't respond for a week or 2 weeks on that platform, on my job, I had nothing. I'm like, I couldn't call anybody. I'm like, dude, I'm not understanding. So, I essentially had to close my business, lost that job was like 15,000. I probably lost close to $75,000 to $100,000 because of this company. And almost got kicked off because I just falling off. Yeah. I'm just trying to ask a question. I don't understand. I wouldn't be texting you to try and I don't have time to get on a call. I got time to text you, but I don't have time to get on a call. Oh, okay.
And
asshole.
It's the emotions, but it's the thing is, it's the lack of emotion and the lack of connectability with the human person. And that's what's happening, which is terrible. I mean, the fact that that happened to you, that actually hurts my heart so much, because that happens so many times to different people that are really smart, but maybe they learn different, and they going over an email is not going to help them. I can't even tell you how many companies, like doing my podcast and all the things that I do, where I'm like, I just need to get someone on the phone because that's how I learn. I can't go through your pamphlet and read it, and they don't even have customer service. And I'm like, no, well, how can I get it?
I had to close my business. I ended up closing my business. I didn't have any choices because I couldn't operate that way. I was actually, for a while, I didn't even have a home. I was living in my office because, in that industry is that you get paid when the job's installed. But if, what they did at one point in time is took all the installers out of Illinois and put them in all these other states. The winner didn't tell me, and so I'm not getting paid. So I was living in my office, in my spare, had a blanket, had a pillow, and had some mats. I ended up having closed my company, lost. But you can't even get somebody on the call to have a quick conversation. The conversation probably would have taken 5 minutes and would have been taken care of forever, because now I understood.
Right. And that's what we and dyslexic people and people that learn different go through every freaking day. And the fact that there has been, again, some really good things that maybe have happened. Again, technology. My older son did get to go to a school that was specifically for dyslexia. Really changed his world. There's so many different things, but then you have this huge disconnect when it's real life and you're an adult and things are operating through just email. And it's like that human connection it's sad. It actually breaks my heart. And but that again, now you're seeing more entrepreneurs come about, and you are seeing that. So maybe that you're seeing more inventors, and those are the people that have the creative brain. Those are the people that want the human connection. But you have to put yourself in those circles to find those people. And it's not, if you're not an inventor, how do you find those people? I mean, that's why I love podcasting, because of all the different people that I meet. And
technology, obviously, you're good at technology, voice text, and, you try to help me set this up, last week. I had no idea. I'm like a fucking dog chasing my tail in circles, just like this.
But that was internet connection. That wasn't your fault,
technology,
right?
For me in technology, people always say dyslexic, there's technology out there. I really feel old because I find it harder. I'll write everything I write, everything's written down, hand notes, or everything schedule is written down. But for me in technology, and I don't know, obviously, if that's maybe my age coming in there, that makes it harder. But sending an email or email is really hard because it ends up being length. Voice text, I still screw up half the time. I'm actually texting the words and not the voice text, and so I don't know if it's my age or it's the next generation. Just because only computer I knew was one where I'd play Oregon Trail and I get pissed off when my wheel broke off, and
Yes, but I do have to say, Right. And but I do have to say, even though, because people would say this to Montgomery, and there was times where he would get really frustrated because he's like, that's not completely the way my brain works. He's not huge into technology. And some of the stuff that the school would be like, well, no, you're going to use this, you're going to use this, and you're going to do this. And the thing that I love, one of the things I love about my kid, but he would literally come and say to me, he's like, this is why it's not working. And I remember when he went back to mainstream school and they're like, you can still use your voice text. He's like, I'm sitting in a class using my voice text. First of all, that's weird. Second of all, if they're like go in the hall, then I miss what they're talking about. But not only that, it's picking up all these other words from the people in the hall, and I can't see that it's in there. And so then my words, he's like, it actually hinders me when I'm in this setting. And I said, oh, thank you for explaining that way. If you didn't explain, I would never have known. I was like, I will tell them to take that out of your IEP immediately. But I knew that also put him on on a different playing level because he's so much better with the communicating words. But I understood that it just didn't work in that situation. Or my dad and I talked about it. Some of that technology is so sensitive, it doesn't pick up your spelling. Right. And it's really not where it needs to be because it doesn't. Every day,
Siri's racist. Siri is racist 100%. She doesn't like Canadians. I'm like, I didn't say that.
Wait, that's hilarious.
Like my accent now? I thought accents were supposed to be sexy, Siri. Come on, listen to me.
Siri doesn't like you. But so that is a very interesting thing that you
Maybe
brought
it's a
up.
woman thing.
It could be that. She doesn't pick up your accent. That's hilarious. But it is frustrating. It's frustrating with some of the stuff. And I am not really, I have to say, I'm not like, I know some technology, but I also am a bit stubborn where I'm like, I will figure this
Give yourself some credit. You were walking me through pretty darn good. Give yourself, I'll toot your horn. You're pretty good.
Well, what did I say to you though?
Touch this, go up here, you go here, go here. You're walking around there pretty good. I'm like, all right, sure, wherever. Sounds good.
But I also am the type of person that turns things off and turns it back on. And I'm like, that should reboot everything. And sometimes it does. Wow. But I am the type of person
There's a window over here that I like to throw things out.
Hopefully there's no one down there that you hit. But this is where I also think of different personalities. I also am someone that's like, I am not going to give up. I'm going to figure it out. I say yes before I know how to do something. And I'm like, I'm going to figure it out. And I will now in my older age, I don't care. I'll ask someone, even though sometimes, and especially with this podcasting where I've had to do live events and they're like, okay, you got to, and I'm like, my brain does not work that way. And I feel so dumb, but you know what? I'm going to figure it out. And I have people in the world, in the podcasting world, and a few of them that I would say 2 of them that I can actually call and be like, can you please just explain this to me? Because I don't understand it. And they do. And I'm very fortunate that I have that, but I've also been helpful for them with like thinking of big ideas and things like that. So I have that, which then just gives me the confidence to push. Do you know what I mean? To be like, okay, I can go out of my comfort zone a little bit more and try something.
Well, in life's obviously give and take. It's great that you have those friends, but it starts with your courage to do that. And you talk about old age. Maybe I'll call myself courageless because I won't say yes and then try and figure it out. Absolutely not. Now,
and anything.
If you ask me to go move an apartment, no. Anything, physically, that's why it's just, I'll move apartments, I'll move houses on my back by myself, couches, fridges. People are like, what the fuck? Like, because I can do it.
Because you're strong.
That, is my strength. It's, to your point, is technology. With the foundation, I have a lot of people say, hey, Brent, how are you going back? We're talking about school, we're talking about 504s and IEPs and different things and Orton Gillingham. And how are you bettering yourself? I get the question all the time. And I said, that's a great question. I said, I'm not. It's like, what do you mean you're not? How can you stand there and talk? You're talking out both sides of your mouth. I said, no, I'm talking out of it's too fresh. My wounds are wide open still from school. Like we're talking about technology, Orton Gillingham, betting my reading or, betting my writing, with my dysgraphia or math skills. To me, technology, it's all in one group. And that's all pain for me. Like I didn't I only found out I had it like 10 years ago. So, and then entering the real world at like 40 years old, because I lived the first 40 years not in the real world. I was obviously a kid, teenager. Then I turned straight to a pro athlete, and we don't live in the real world. So maybe that's entering it late. Maybe that's the struggle. Maybe that's my wound still being open with peroxide being poured into it. But I'm just being honest. No, I'm like, so I'd rather bring awareness to it. I'm not going to lie to you. That's why I'm not. Maybe there is a day where I'm comfortable. Maybe there's a day where I've got comfort or confidence like you do to explore that. But right now, in most of those things, I don't.
But you also with the foundation, you have people that are there that can help with those things. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, with like...
100%. I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. Because,
right. And you're honest about it. You don't fake it, but you surround yourself with people that, okay, hey, I need a little bit of information here. Can you help me with that? But I have to challenge you on now with coaching and what you're doing with kids. I feel like from what I know of you, the small amount that you have this ability, know that you can reach them. And when you're talking to high schools and when you're talking about this, that you can make a difference in someone's life and you don't think twice about it. Am I right?
No, 100%. Speaking my words, I know that I can relate to somebody. I can, no matter if it's a 4-year-old little boy, a 10-year-old little girl, or a 55-year-old man. I made a joke earlier. I've lived 77 lives. I got some people like, holy dude, like you need to write a book. What you've been through, is astounding. So when I speak words, I know I can help. And I don't know if relatability for me is such a key component to, coaching, and life is you've got coaches. You don't relate with your players. For me is I coach with fun and self-esteem first and foremost. Because if you're not having fun at something, like, you talk about your husband having to do the 5 tests, you and I would be so pissed off. We're not having fun. Guess what? We're not going to learn.
Right.
And then now if you're not learning and you're pissed off, then where's your self-esteem go? Goes down. So now where's your ability to succeed at whatever? It's not where it should be, where it can be, where it needs to be. So most people that's why I coach. Like I'm singing the air guitar, I'm playing the air guitar, I've got to grab a stick and I got a mic and I'm singing Bon Jovi and the kids are like, but we have fun. But I'm teaching them things that they don't even know that I'm teaching them because I'm having fun. And, very few coaches do that. And again, I'm not knocking coaching styles. I just coach that way, not because I made it to the NHL and won a Stanley Cup and played over 1,000 games. It's because I struggled.
One of the things though and I think that you don't see is like sometimes is like that's a huge gift because there's many people that could not step into there and get the attention of kids and knowing that you can actually make a difference and change the life. There's so many people that would never do that because they'd be like, I have nothing to share or I don't know how to share it. And whether they went through struggles or not, there's something very beautiful about your heart and the way that you pour into other people and specifically children. And I have to say, I would be a terrible coach. I get and I'm not putting myself down, but I don't see things like that. Like my coaches would say, here's the ball, run to the goal. If you see someone, pass it. And that's what I would do. I didn't have like a big picture thought on the field. I was fast, I was strong, and I was a bulldozer. So I just used to just plow and get, and because I was fast. But I didn't have that coaching mentality. And I still, if someone said to me, hey, my daughter plays lacrosse, and they'll all the parents come and ask me, and I'm like, guys, I don't know any of the rules. Please don't ask me. I know I played, but that's not who I am. And I would never step on a field and coach. I wouldn't have the confidence to do it because I know that that's not my strength. And maybe it's not the confidence. I just know my strengths and weaknesses.
And I think, egos kill in the world. First responders, people don't relate with them and what they see. They just think what they walk into, firemen or, paramedics, like the most gnarliest things, like people, don't relate, and they're taught be tough and, bury it till, that's why I'm on death for firemen and suicide, because they finally just, snap, and sports is the same way. Is ego. I got to win, wins and losses, wins and losses, wins and losses. So I call it two different things. There's coaching and teaching. Mm-hmm. Teaching is a completely different thing. It's teaching, developing. There's very few people in the sporting world. Here in Illinois hockey, 99.9% of them are bad coaches with egos and want to win. They're not developing. They're not teaching. Oh, I got to get, my record's got to be 50 and 50 or whatever it is, or 60 and 60 or whatever that is, so that they can go get the next job. I think you and I touched on the other day. We can break things down so simply that nobody can see them. And that's what I do with the kids. Oh, you're supposed to go here and do this. The kid's 6. I had I had a game yesterday. I had 4 kids in the middle. Coach, I got to go pee. So there I'm waving the parents. Mom, we got to go pee. This one's going in the middle of the game, going off here. So why are we going to tell them, oh, you're supposed to take a jab, stab, left, right, center. They don't even half of them don't know their lefts and their rights. So what the fuck are you talking about? So my one buddy, I coach kids. He's like, Brian, you're 6 going on 7. So you relate with them. I'm like, yeah, that's me. But they think, you don't treat them as kids when they're on the field, court, or the ice. You treat them as adults, and they're not.
Right. But I love that. But do you see that you have a gift there, right?
I do 100%. I agree. I do see a gift, but I said this to you last week. I'm obviously misunderstood every single day. I'm even more misunderstood in the hockey world, because the hockey world is the most ugliest, conceited, selfish world there is out there. And if you don't conform to, if you're not in this little basket, they're going to fire you. They're going to kick you off. And I don't, obviously, if you're listening to this or you know me, I don't conform to that. I try and simplify it so much that hopefully one day that they're comfortable enough to get there. So I see that gift. I know I can change kids' lives in the world, but in the hockey community in a short period of time. But I spend more time trying to defend what I'm doing than actual coaching.
And that has to be exhausting.
I'm exhausted every single night. I tell it that, literally, I come home 8, 9, I'm in bed. Like last night, 8 o'clock, I'm in bed. I have to be on every day, all day long. And people, you go to work, you have to be on. It's a different being on. It's not sitting behind a computer, sending those emails. It's when you're a public, people are looking up to you. And when I'm trying to, change the world, or I'm trying to do things a little bit differently, I've got to be on and I got to be perfect every second of the day. And I come home, I'm exhausted, just flat out exhausted.
Right.
And
that is because you're a public figure. Yeah. Right. Because that's because you are a public figure. I know you always don't like to say that, but you're a professional athlete. Like in this society, that is a huge thing. And it's also is a huge thing. You have major talents. And so when you're there, people are going to put you on a pedestal. But one of the things that I always talk about in a lot of the stuff that they do with my podcast is just because you had this talent here and you were at a very high level, you're still a person and you still wake up and put your pants on the same as everyone else. But people like to pretend like that doesn't happen, right? And then they like to criticize you more. Oh. Wait, you do say that, don't you? It's so funny. Yeah, but it's true.
I'll follow it up with maybe the women jump off the bed in their Lululemons to get in there. But yeah.
Oh, I don't do that one. Thank you so much for joining Word Blindness. We are so excited to be sharing these stories and our stories. But what's important is to rate, review, and share this. Share this with as many people because you don't know in your world who needs to hear this.
Yeah, you truly can save a life. When we do say this, you don't know who doesn't know who this will connect with. And you can truly, save a life. I know it kind of sounds crazy by saying that, but you truly can by, sharing this to anybody you can.
We'll see you guys next week.